I'm Antara.
I'm Garima.
And this is the Antara and Garima show where we bring to you the juiciest conversations which could sometimes get borderline controversial. Sometimes.
Yeah, we'll try not to get there.
Basically, it's a little bit of what we like and a whole lot of everything that we know you will enjoy. From the hottest events in town to the most trending topics, we've got it all.
And joining us today is a passionate HR professional who has over a decade of experience in India and GCC. But not just that, she was a computer engineer, is a psychologist, has a degree in HR, and now is the founder of Ascent Consulting, LLC. Wow, if I would have been on the HR side, no, yeah, I would have been like, dude, she's like my full family. Like my brother is a computer engineer, my sister's in HR. I can be a borderline psychologist because I've studied psychology back in my college days. So yeah, you're like 3 people, dude, in my family already. Wow, this is Farzeen and welcome to the show, Farzeen.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that amazing intro. Thank you so much. So amazing to be with both of you wonderful ladies here today.
We are super excited and we have so many things that we want to ask.
Absolutely.
Let's get rolling. Let's do this.
Thank you, guys.
We are so excited to have you.
Absolutely. Because if I would have been reading all of that on her CV right now as in HR, I would have just looked at it and be like, whoa, wow, you're hired. Right? Quite an experience there, yeah?
Yes, fair amount of experience. Yeah, a lot of water down the bridge. Yeah, a lot of stories to share.
How did it all start?
Oh, well, I never wanted to be an engineer to start with. I wanted to be a psychologist. But then...
there you go.
Back in the day, psychology was not considered a degree.
Oh.
So I had to choose either between medicine or engineering. So my parents are doctors.
Okay.
And the last thing I wanted was to follow the rules. So I said, nope, I'm going to go the other way. So when I did my engineering degree, I realized that, this is really boring. I'm going to totally suck at it. So
that explains the chemical engineer part.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So then after that, I did an MBA I did my degree in psychology. And then I went on to do an MBA in human resources because I realized that I love working with people.
Nice.
That's my passion. I really enjoy it. I just can't sit behind a computer or something of that sort. So I decided that I should pursue my passion.
But to actually look at it, psychology and human resources, they kind of complement each other. I think it's like a really good thing to have that degree going along with this one.
Yeah, well, it does help you understand people to some extent, but sometimes the kind of people that walk into your life, you're like, oh my God, psycho.
We didn't even study about this in psychology, right?
No.
Okay, before we actually dive into the questions about HR and all of that, I actually want to know from you, according to you, what does an HR...
Is this an interview?
No.
Okay.
Just a very casual question. Like, what do you think an HR does?
Easy. Hire and fire. Okay, no. There's more to that. She's giving me the looks. Onboarding, recruitment, performance evaluation, I think a little bit of compliance, addressing people and their issues. What am I missing?
Wow.
Pretty much most of it. Yeah, so we take care of the employee right from the start to the finish. That's what the HR is about. So it's about human
from
resources.
The job interview to the exit interview.
Yeah, from right.
Yeah.
From day one to the
and actually, to look at it, these are the guys who are there in the whole lifespan of that employee with the company, right from shortlisting your CV from LinkedIn or your website to the exit interview and making sure that you get everything that you actually deserve, right? Yeah. That's the only common person. Like, just imagine how important that person is in the company.
Very. And yet, companies don't give HR the importance that they should get.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they just do away with it.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I could interview and appoint someone, what's the big deal?
Yeah, because that's what they think, no? Hire and fire.
Yeah, exactly. Like what I said. See, ignorant one.
But we're pretty much sure that, there's a lot more to that. So if you can just take us through and talk us through the actual daily base routine of an HR professional, what exactly it is like.
So, well, HR is, there are different levels to it.
Okay.
At a very simple level for a small organization, it's like what you said, hire and fire, take care of the day-to-day requirements of the employees, you take care of absence management, payroll processing, compliance to local labor law, things like that. When you move into a larger organization, your role as an HR professional will be more complex. You will handle more things when it comes to talent acquisition as well, talent management, talent development, manpower planning, HR cost management, performance management at different levels, right from your bonuses to your incentives.
Wow.
Then, of course, then there's succession planning, mentorship programs, coaching. Then there's the whole L&D piece, which is all your learning and development, identifying your technical trainings, behavioral trainings, making sure all of these things happen. So the complexity keeps increasing depending upon how large the organization is, and also how focused the organization is upon its employees.
Right.
So there are large
How
corporates
invested
sometimes
they
who don't want to invest in their employees.
Correct.
They
Right.
just see them as a resource to use, and that's not very nice. But there are some organizations that are very employee centric, and these are the ones that we see who get ahead because they invest in their employees and they care about them. They want them to grow and develop, and it has to be a mutually beneficial relationship
Right.
for the employer and the employee.
Right.
Both sides should benefit.
Right.
It cannot be like I take, and you give everything to me. It has to be a give and take. Those are the most successful employee-employee relationships
When one
that I've
grows,
seen.
the other one also grows.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right.
if you want your company to be more sustainable and you want your growth to be more sustainable, then you have to invest in the employees so they can grow along with you.
Right.
And they want to be a part of your growth.
Right.
Yeah.
Garima,
Right.
let's do it like right from the start to the end, like you said, right? So what is the first thing that you notice about someone when they walk in for an interview?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think for me, the first thing that I notice when somebody walks into an interview is their smile.
Okay.
Right?
We take that box.
Interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
Something.
A lot of times people are very nervous when they walk into an interview. For me, that's the first indicator about how confident that person is. Does he or she walk into my room with a smile? Then, of course, I look at the whole attire, like are they appropriately dressed for the role that they're applying for?
Presentable.
Yeah, the
That's
presentable
the-
can be smart casuals or formals, depending upon, I always say it's better to be more formal than informal. Yeah. So how they carry themselves into the room, how they introduce themselves, and the posture when they're sitting down at the desk. Like, are they like
We're
slouching
all
over?
instantly adjusting
things
our
like that,
postures here.
Then they dump stuff on my desk, like their handbag or mobile. No, it's my desk. You don't keep stuff on my table without my permission. So these are the little things which you might not, before they even open their mouth, there's a whole ton of stuff which has already been noted.
Right.
So yeah,
right.
so these are the things
That
which,
is across departments, no matter which department you're coming in
irrespective,
interviewing for.
So you sometimes find like really senior people or really highly qualified people come in and they have zero personality or like zero grooming and etiquette, and you're like, oh,
Like
you
they're
are
good
not
on-
fitting into our culture.
Like they're
Right.
good on paper. And
Yeah.
I think let's backtrack a little bit. What about the CVs? How do you go about
CVs?
judging someone based on their CV? Like, what do you look at?
Well, for one, we don't believe everything the CV says because a lot of people fluff up things in their CV.
You
So
always
we-
have ChatGPT to glorify whatever you're writing.
yeah, especially now, if the CV is very eloquently put, but the person who walks into the room is not matching the CV, you're like, okay, there's some work has been done, maybe on the person and the CV as well. So we have to take whatever is on the CV with a pinch of salt, and that's why the interview happens.
Right.
And we also do psychometric testing, which is another indicator as to what is the personality like. And there are some companies that invest in doing technical tests as well in terms of their abstract reasoning, numeric reasoning, verbal reasoning, these kind of things as well, to make sure that what you put in the CV is actually who you are.
Have you
Wow,
ever
how do
gone
you
through
do
that?
that?
So you have the psychometric assessment. That's something which we do as well as a part of our work, wherein we do personality testing for people
Okay.
to make sure that they are the right fit for the role that they're applying for.
Wow.
So you match the competencies and the traits of the individual to the role that they're applying for to see whether, if, for example, somebody who is getting into sales, you need someone who's going to be like really pushy and ambitious and flamboyant and creative. So if you have somebody who's like an introvert and very gentle and quiet, he may or may not excel in that particular role. So
fair.
depending upon the role, there are certain personality traits and certain competencies that you expect, both technically as well as behaviorally. So we do these tests to make sure that, they fit that role. Because this
Right.
would be in addition to doing an interview. Because an interview, no matter how much you try, there can be bias.
Right.
Right?
Of course.
So in order to offset the bias that could possibly happen in an interview, we always recommend that you add a psychometric test along with interviews, especially for critical positions, so that you know that you are getting the right person into the role. Because it's always very expensive if you've made a wrong hire.
That's right. Of course.
Very expensive for the organization.
Very true.
Firing them, rehiring and training another person, and then all the lost time, all the lost knowledge, it's just doesn't make good financial sense. So
Right.
be
Right.
really careful that you fit the right person into the right role.
Right. Okay, so before you even make it to the interview, I'm sure there are a lot of filters for your CVs as well. And since you are going through so many CVs on a daily basis, like, is it the right approach, especially for a market like Oman here, that you update your CV, upload it on LinkedIn, all the openings that you have, you keep applying everywhere, and then just wait for the magic to happen? Is that the right approach if you are in the process of looking for a new role and, like if you're switching jobs and all? Is that the right way? Is LinkedIn really the right platform to look for a kind of role or a job that you're looking for?
Well, to be honest, LinkedIn is just a start. It's
Okay.
just like the tip
It's a
of the
start.
iceberg. Yeah. So especially in a country like Oman, Oman is very connection oriented.
Right.
It's about who you know and how you tap into your network. So that's really, really important in Oman. So you have to actually go out there and make personal connections with people, or if you've already been in the country for a fair amount of time, you use your existing network, you spread the word out among your friends, family, relatives, past colleagues, to let other people know that you are looking for a role and this is the kind of role that you're looking for. And a lot of times, positions get filled through referrals.
Right.
And as employers, typically we prefer to hire people who come through referrals to some extent because we know who we are hiring rather than a completely unknown person.
Right.
Of course, that person has to fit the bill in terms of the qualifications, experience, the skill set that we're looking for. But having the fact that there is a common factor between us makes sure that the person that we're taking in would probably be a good fit for our culture or not.
Right.
But Farzeen, I have a question there.
Yeah.
Like, let's take a scenario here. Let's say that you have a lot of entries for a certain role that you're looking for, okay?
Yeah.
And in all those CVs, you have shortlisted a couple of them where you have amazing skill sets, great experience, and is like a very impressive CV.
Yeah.
Here comes your boss, hands over another CV and says that, I know this person, hire this person. How do you really decide then that whether you should be going ahead with just because if it's a reference or because it's genuinely a very nice, impressive CV that's right there in front of your table and you know that, okay, this one's going to do the job better?
No, so this is where the strength of the HR comes into the picture. So in
Okay.
organizations where the HR is empowered,
Yeah.
they would be able, they take the call to a large extent in terms of saying that, listen, we will give that person a fair chance, just
Right.
as all the other candidates.
Right.
And then it's, whoever is the best candidate, that is the person who we pick up for the organization.
Right.
So that's ideally what should happen.
Right.
Now, if it's an organization that supports, HR in the right manner, then this goes through. Now, there are organizations where HR can get strong-armed into saying that, okay, fine, yeah, you think candidate A is better than candidate B, but I want candidate B because he's somebody's cousin or uncle or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So in such cases, it does happen that HR would have to appoint candidate B, even though it
Yeah.
goes on record that candidate A was a better candidate, but then that's documented.
Yeah.
So in the interview notes, you would, for example, if it's happened to me as well,
Yeah.
in my previous organizations as well, that you have pressure put on you
Correct.
from the higher ups or from stakeholders or shareholders who say that, you know what, you have to take this person because of XYZ reason and
Right.
so on and so forth.
Right.
So but you document it. They say that, okay, this was not the right fit. It was somebody else who was a better fit, but has been taken because has been referred by XYZ.
Yeah. But now just imagine that whichever team that person is going to, the manager is also facing certain issues there then.
Yeah.
Eventually he would if
Yeah.
that person is
It's
really
not the
not
right
qualified.
person, yes.
So then how do you go and help the manager out? Because you're in HR, you got to keep the manager also happy. You
Yeah.
also got to keep the higher ups happy.
Absolutely.
So how do you then help a manager to deal with an employee who is choosing not to work but also knows is not going to get fired?
Yeah, so we face this a lot as well. So
Yeah.
there are, some people have certain amount of immunity. They know that they can get away with it.
Yeah.
So what happens in such cases, what my advice would be for line managers would be to have a very clear job description in place.
Right.
When the person joins, make sure that they sign it, that this is the job description, these are my key responsibilities, these are my KPIs, these are my goals for the year, this is
Right.
what I'm going to be assessed on. And if the person is not doing it, then you follow the due process of labor law. So Oman labor law states very clearly what you have to do if a person is
3
not
notices?
doing. Yeah, so you have your verbal warnings, you have your written warnings, and then if still things are not working, then you put the person on a performance improvement plan. So it's a long process, I understand, but follow the process because
Right. Now just imagine this person being a cousin of the higher up. How
Yeah.
do you really do
Yes.
that?
Yeah, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
hardest for the HR to justify
It is,
to
yeah.
both the parties there.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to HR, people think HR is all about birthday parties and employee engagement and all that happy and fluffy stuff.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of that, but a lot of HR is about people management,
Right.
and it's not for everyone. So people,
Right.
a lot of people get into HR thinking, oh, it's going to be a cushy job, it's going to be easy. You know, it's not, because you have to manage so many different people's expectations. You see so many different faces of the same people as well. So you see a lot.
It can emotionally exhausting sometimes.
Yes, it can be. It can be. So you have to learn how to keep your work at work and not take it home, because otherwise it can really drain you.
Yeah.
And you have to some extent, you have to you can't really have friends at work.
Yeah.
That's very hard.
Really, you
Yeah.
would say that. You can't
So
have
for
friends
me,
at
for
work.
example, personally, I couldn't really have any deep friendships when I was working as an HR manager.
Right.
Because I don't know when I'm going to have to call that person into my office and fire her for whatever reason, or I have to call her in to give her a disciplinary warning or so on. So, and also it doesn't send out the right message to employees as well, that she's pally with that person,
Right.
so I'm sure that she has certain advantages and benefits.
Right.
That's not the right kind of, because
Right.
you want to be perceived as being ethical, you want to be perceived as being fair. So that means you don't pick sides. You might have a side which you've picked already, but you don't make it evident. You listen to all parties and you try to be as neutral as possible. It's very hard.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. And you try to keep a poker face. So that's something which I really learned in my early days, that because normally everything shows on my face. So
Right.
when I took on the job of a corporate HR, I learned, okay, I have to learn how to control my emotions and not show anger or disgust or shock or, whatever it is.
Let's
So-
do
Talking
this. I
about
want to see
faces,
her
I
poker
actually,
face.
I actually have a question coming from this one, talking about poker faces and faces. Is it okay to actually add a photo to your CV? To actually add a face right there? And my following question to that would be that if you are
What kind of
adding a
face?
photo, I really want to know, because I've been on both sides actually in my last career of like 18 years. I've been on both sides, giving an interview, taking interviews, and you here see a CV which has got, some people actually put their formal photos, but some of them, the logic behind that is, I actually got a lot of likes on Instagram, so
Yeah,
this
like-
made just the perfect fit my CV. Yeah, and I'm like, okay. So, question:
yeah.
should we add a photo to the CV? And if we are, what should we keep in mind?
So, adding a photo to the CV is not really required. A lot of countries actually prefer that people don't put put a photo on their CV, because it could lead to bias.
Oh,
Yeah. So in certain countries, you're not allowed to put a photograph on your CV.
countries like.
Like the UK, for example, they prefer that you don't put your photograph on the CV.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Whereas the practice in the Middle East typically is to put the photo on your CV and put a nice photo on CV. But again, it has to be a corporate photo. Like, it has to be a formal photograph
Right.
where you actually look nice. Don't put your passport photo where you're like all this like like
They're
weird.
the worst.
Yeah.
Never come out nice.
You because I always feel that I think my passport photo looks like a mugshot. Yeah. So if I were to put that on a CV,
That's a true passport photo then. That means the photographer did the job. That's how
Yeah.
you're supposed to look like on the
so
passport size
sometimes
photo.
you get these CVs with this really unflattering photos, and they're like, oh my god, why didn't you want to hire this guy?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So that's on one side,
Okay.
and then on the other side, you have some people who put on these weird photos. I'm like, what were you thinking when you took this picture and put it on your CV? Like like very, very seductive or like very suggestive. And like, yeah, like
I'm so curious. I definitely want to see
I've
these
had work
photos.
done on my face. Look at me. That
Yeah,
kind of. And like, oh my God, why do
Yeah,
this?
why
to
would you
yourself?
do that?
This is like 10 steps back for womankind.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there are pictures like that as well. So if you're putting a picture on your CV, I would highly recommend that you get a proper corporate headshot done, where
Right.
you're wearing a formal attire.
Right.
And remember that you're living in an Islamic country, so please respect the traditions.
Right.
In the sense that don't wear revealing
reveal.
clothes
Modest,
or be
yes.
modestly
Yeah.
attired
Yeah.
and so on.
Yeah.
And no flashy jewelry when you're going for an interview, like no jingle jangling bangles and bracelets and fat earrings and necklaces and stuff like that. We've seen that as well. So keep it simple, be elegant. So the same thing would apply in your photograph as well. So make sure that it portrays that you are a professional, you are serious about the job.
Yeah.
Not that you're like, oh, look at me, I'm so pretty, come hire me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not what you're
are you
going for.
suggesting? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also talking about as to how much should you really share on your CV? Because some people actually have this mindset that if my CV is of 3 pages, it's going to get that attention. My CV actually should be of 5 pages. Whereas a lot can be said in just one page.
Yeah.
I mean, just the highlights. So what is technically a good length for a CV? I remember reading this somewhere. It says that if you have over 5 years of experience or over 7 or 8 years, it can go somewhere to 2 pages, but anything below that should just stick to 1 page. Is that true, or what do you say?
So typically, if you are just a fresher, if you're just starting out, I would say just stick with 1 page, stick with what you know, don't fluff it up unnecessarily. If you are, like you said, a seasoned professional, then yes, you can go up to a maximum of 2 pages. I've received CVs up to 20, 23 pages.
It's a book.
Wow.
It's a manuscript. Yeah, I swear. So I was like, so this was like a very highly qualified doctor, and I was like, oh my God, what were you thinking?
20,
Like,
I don't even know what
25
pages.
pages.
yeah. So I think it was like a page for every year of his career.
Oh, wow.
So,
25 pages. Wow.
Yeah, so it's...
That's like 1 full day job for you, right? Like, I'm done with today.
So what you need to understand about a CV is that your hiring manager or the HR is not going to read the entire thing. So everything that needs to be said should be in the first page. Especially in the first half of the page, if you would ask me.
Right.
Okay.
We skim.
Oh.
Yeah. So we will look at, the objective of the person or the professional summary of the person.
Right.
We would look at what are the key skills that they have.
Right.
And the work experience, the most recent 1 or
Right.
2 work experiences.
Ah.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah,
Then, of
right.
course, we might flip over to say, okay, what are the person's qualifications and, certifications, if at all. But essentially, everything that you need to say should be in the first half of your page.
Wow.
So every word counts.
Yeah.
Write it in a simple language. Sometimes people use like very fancy language,
Yeah.
and then they come and sit in front of you for the interview, and they don't speak that language. And
True.
you're like, you're not the person. So your CV is actually a precursor, to what the person wants to expect at the time of an interview.
Yeah.
So it should match.
Right.
You should be talking the same language.
Right.
as
So it
your
might
CV.
get you through the first stage, but then the second
Yeah.
stage, it's not really going to
Right.
help you.
Yeah. So keep it simple. Be honest.
Yeah.
Keep it short.
Right.
The less is more.
Yeah, perfect. I think that stands true for so many things in our life,
yeah.
right?
So-
Less is more.
Because see, everything that you want to say, you elaborate at the time of the interview. Your CV is just to get you there.
Right.
Ah, what right, just the perfect way of saying it, right?
Yeah, because that's the whole point of the interview. So if everything you want to say in the interview, if you put it on your CV, then why are you here?
So now everything is like, through Zoom and all of that. So when you're interviewing people digitally,
Yeah.
how do they make a good first impression? What do they have to do to impress you?
Okay, so first and foremost, make sure you get your tech right. Okay, you don't want last thing you want is to be like fumbling, just trying to find your mute button and your video and all of that stuff. Just make sure that you know how to use the software, the Teams or Zoom, whatever it is you're using. Make sure that you know how to use it properly. Then make sure you're properly dressed, like formally. If you're wearing a jacket or if you're wearing a formal shirt, whatever it is, make sure you're properly dressed. Make sure the lighting in your room is appropriate. You should not be too bright, should not be too dark. So, switch on your video beforehand and see that it's all correct. And the background, if you have like stuff behind you, then try to blur your background or move to a place where you have like a, like a more neutral kind of background. And make sure that nobody's coming into the room when the interview is happening. Yeah, because this can happen a lot as well.
Yeah.
So you lock your room.
Yeah.
So that nobody comes in.
Right.
Let people know that you don't want people knocking at the door and like trying to disturb you when the interview is happening.
Right.
Either. So make sure
And
that
saying inappropriate stuff.
yeah, you don't want the embarrassing stuff getting out of your closet. So make sure the
That
closet is
definitely
well
works
locked.
for a reel, but not for an interview. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So just do the preparation well in advance in terms
Right.
of lighting, sound, using the technology, and and making sure that your background and everything is appropriate. Yeah. And you yourself address appropriately. And don't be in your PJs when you're getting interviewed, please.
Yeah, and then someone calls and you get up and then there are your PJs right there.
Yeah. So please don't do that either.
Okay, talking about interviews, talking about digital interviews, there is one question that every HR professional will ask you, or whosoever is on the other side, that what are your salary expectations?
Yeah.
Now, I really want to know what is the right way of answering that question. Should you be saying that 30% of hike from my previous job, or should I be saying that because I was very undervalued in my previous company, that's the reason why I'm looking for a jump and I should at least get 50%? Many a times, the companies actually even ask for your pay slips, the previous pay slips, just to check if what you are technically asking for is there.
Yeah.
Or so basically, what is the right way of answering that question? The question being, what are your salary expectations?
So first and foremost, what I would suggest is that you wait for the employer to bring up the question of salary. You don't bring it up in the interview. Sometimes people will jump up and say, what is the salary? Tell me first. And you'll be like, goodbye.
Yeah.
That's it.
not
That's a red flag.
Yeah. So first and foremost, you wait for the other person to, as in the interviewer, to bring up the question of salary. Now, if the interviewer asks you, what are your salary expectations? Then, okay, make sure that you've done your research. Okay, so you do a market study and you see what is being paid for that particular role.
Right.
So the number that you quote should be in line with what is being paid typically in the market.
Right.
So if someone's being paid 500 riyals for that job, you don't go in there and ask for 1,000. Right. So what you ask for should make sense. You know, it can be a little above, a little below, whatever it is, but make sure that it makes sense. And secondly, so if you've been in the country for a certain amount of time, you already know what you should get paid for that amount. And if you're applying for a job that you already have a lot of experience for, then yes, you can ask for a bump in the bump in your pay hike. But I would always suggest that no matter what number you put out there, just add this last line saying that, but I'm flexible or it's negotiable.
Oh.
Okay, so that way it's not like a hard stop for
Right.
the employer, because
Right.
sometimes HR, we have budgets,
Right.
right? So our boss would probably come to us and say, listen, I want you to hire a person, and I know you should typically give 500, but we don't have budget for it this year, so you have to get a person for 450. Okay, I'm just saying 450.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then and you go into the interview and say, I'm not coming for anything less than 600, then you're like, oh,
Yeah, why wasting
bother?
time?
Why waste my time?
Correct.
You might just say that thinking that, okay, if I ask for 600, maybe I'll get 500, whatever. But if you come across as like too hard on that number, the HR might not even call you back. She'll be like, oh, you know what? She seemed like she's really strict on the 600. I don't want to call up and get embarrassed. So she probably won't call. What if you were ready to come in for 450 because you want to get into the workforce or whatever it is, but you just put 600 as a number because you felt that's what you were worth, but you are ready to consider a lower number.
Yeah. Yeah.
But by not saying that you're open to negotiation or that you're flexible, you cut that chance off. So always add that last line. This is what my expectation is, which is in line with what the market pays these days, as per my inquiries. However, I am open to negotiations if it comes to that.
I have another
but I
question.
really do want to work with you.
Yeah, I actually have another question.
Oh, okay.
Because this is one of those questions that is asked in most of the interviews. The second most common question is that, why are you leaving your current job?
Yes.
Now, what is the limit of being honest there?
No,
Can
please
you
don't
really
don't be
go
too
all out
honest.
and say,
Please don't.
"Well, listen, please, this is a long story, okay? Yeah. So, because somewhere or the other, you would be aware of it as to why are you looking for a new job, right? But then,
so don't go into the whole don't write a book about it.
Okay. So what is the right way of answering that question also?
Yeah, so you have to be honest, but not honest to a fault. You're given enough information, but not too much. You don't want to tell them the whole story about, you know what, my boss was a terrible person, and then, he's been so abusive and he's done all his work on me, and la 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 la.
You suddenly became an astrologer here. So many of them just watching right now. I think if any one of us just looks into the camera and says that, currently you are having a very difficult boss in your life, I think this line stands true for 99% of the people, right?
She knows me. She knows me. She gets it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so what I would suggest is that in such situations, give an idea of why you left the job. Okay, you could say that, I didn't, I had differences with my previous employer, or I felt that I had outgrown my role and I wanted more learning and growth, which was not available in the previous company. So as much as possible, try not to blame somebody else for your decision. Try to make it more of like I'm doing this for my own growth, my own learning journey. And, I'm doing it because I've always wanted to work, in a multinational company. For example, I'm just giving an example. Let's say you're moving from, let's say, a local company to a multinational company. I've always wanted to work for a multinational company, and this seemed like a good opportunity. That's why I thought, okay, fine, I'll say goodbye to my old job and, apply for a new one. So you don't always have to give the truth and the whole truth and everything. That's you have to be diplomatic, because especially if you're planning to continue in Muscat, I would highly recommend that you water down the truth, because Muscat is a very small place. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody meets each other in Lulu and Carrefour and all the cafes that are there. So please be really careful when you're leaving one organization, moving to another. Do not burn bridges.
Right.
Do not.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
because
Exactly.
it's gonna come back and
200%
bite
chances,
you.
you
Yeah.
are going to meet the person somewhere. Yeah.
Because
And
somewhere-
it's a very small world.
Yes.
Yes.
And somewhere the person is also going to think that, oh, tomorrow when she leaves from here and joins somewhere else, this is probably what she's going to say about me if you're going to
Yeah.
say something negative about the
Yes.
previous
Yeah.
place, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with people, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't give a good impression to a future employer when you kind of malign your previous
Yeah.
employer
Correct.
as well.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, what kind of person are you? Like you spent 5 years with them, and then
Correct.
all you have to say is negative about the place. Surely there was something nice about
Yeah.
them. as
Yeah,
well,
that's
you know?
the
So
reason why you
it's
stay
not a
there.
nice vibe to kind of start off with the new employer. So try not to get into too many,
Details.
I would advise diplomacy as much
Yeah.
as possible.
Yeah.
Like, or you can just say that we had some differences. I just don't want to get into it.
Right.
Keep it there. They will respect you for it.
Write that.
If they want to dig in, let them go find out their own facts. Keep an investigator or whatever it is.
Correct.
But they're not getting anything from you. Yeah,
True.
that's-
Okay, you just said that 5 years a person has spent with a particular company.
Yeah.
Tell me something that what is a good amount of time for you keeping the career growth in your mind to be
Yeah.
spent with a company? Like
Yeah.
when you look at a CV and you see that a person has jumped or switched jobs every 2 years, you somewhere in your head you feel like why is this person switching jobs so quickly? Maybe that person really is looking for a career growth.
Yeah.
So what is a good enough time on an average to be spent with a company? Like at least 3 years you should be there. At least your CV looks like decent if nothing else. Every 3 years you should switch jobs so that you get your career growth also, both like learning wise also and even money wise as well. So what is a good time to be spent with the company, especially keeping Oman market in mind?
Yeah. The Oman market is not as vibrant as the rest of the GCC market. So you don't have as many career opportunities here. So usually what we find is that people find a job and they stick on with their company for many years. Okay? Simply because there aren't that many opportunities available in the market. So you can't really judge them on the fact that, oh, you stayed in the company for 10 years. You
Yeah.
must be really dumb.
Yeah.
It could just be that the person didn't have a suitable opportunity in the same
Correct.
geography and was not willing to leave the country. Or it could be the fact that the company, they've grown, really, like the company has also grown and the person's role has also grown and, she or he has continued to learn. So
He's progressed within the organization.
his progress within the organization. So what I would recommend is that rather than putting like a time frame, like, oh, I will stay with the company for only minimum of 2 years or only a maximum of 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, you need to ask yourself, what do I want from this job? What am I hoping to learn from this particular company and this job that I'm in? Now, as I mentioned earlier, it needs to be a mutually beneficial relationship. Both the employer and the employee needs to benefit. Now, there will always be a time when the scales will get tipped, where you feel that you are giving more than you're getting back. That's the time when you make a switch.
Wow.
Yeah. Because it can be different for different
Something
people.
to think about, everybody.
Yeah.
It's different for different people. For some
True
people,
that.
it could be 2 years. Some people it could be 3, it could be
Yeah.
5. For some people, it never happens.
Yeah.
Because they continue to be
Learn,
growing
grow.
and
Right.
learning and,
Right.
The company is also investing
Yeah,
in the employees. There are
exactly.
training sessions that are happening. You're making
Yeah.
sure that they're also learning new skill sets.
Exactly.
You're also growing with it. Yeah.
So as a good HR, if I get a CV where somebody has been in an organization for, let's say, 10 or 15 years, I would have to see what has the progression of growth. Has he been in the same
Right.
role for 15 years?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, dude, you don't want to get
Yeah.
out of your comfort zone? Bye-bye. No,
Yeah.
thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
But if it's someone who's grown, let's say, for example, he starts off as a customer service executive, and then he moves on to senior executive, and then assistant manager, and then deputy manager, and then right now he's the head of operations, I'd be like, whoa, good on you, Like
Right.
you've grown, you've worked your way up the ranks.
Right.
Respect
Yeah.
you for that, man.
Yeah. Right.
So that's on one side. But
Yeah.
on the other side, if you see someone who's hopping multiple jobs,
Yeah.
like I would say at least finish one contract. Unless
Correct.
the job is so terrible and the boss is awful or the work is terrible and you just can't stand it or the pay is really bad, I would highly recommend that you finish at least one contract because a contract is a promise at the end
Right.
of the day, right?
Right.
From both sides. So if you
Right.
signed a contract, honor it. You're only worth what your word is. So finish your contract and give due notice and move out. If you're planning to move out, give due notice and say I will be leaving in a month or 2 months or whatever it is and move on to the new opportunity. But at least one contract is what I would recommend, minimum of 2 years to finish in an organization. But again, when it comes to CV, like when you see a CV where there are multiple jumps, again, I would look into okay, where has he moved to? What kind of role? Is it the same role but in a bigger organization or a better organization? Or is it maybe it's a smaller organization but a bigger role, So
It's justified. Then.
yes. So what we are looking for here as HR is what's the story here? What are you trying to tell me with your CV? Like, that's essentially what we're looking for. And if it's a story we like, we hire.
Simply put.
Yeah, right.
All right, so moving on to now that you've been hired, now
Yeah.
it's your first day on the job.
Oh,
It honestly takes you 2-3 days to figure out whether you've got a good team and a good boss.
Oh, yes.
And see, that's not the case. Say you're dealing with a difficult boss. Yeah, you're like, okay, and I'm
Yeah.
stuck for the next 2 years. I need to get through this because you
Yeah.
shouldn't quit immediately, right? So
Yeah.
how do you deal with a difficult boss? It could be anything.
Yeah. So what I would suggest is that, like, when it comes to difficult bosses, don't make snap judgments. Okay, just because a person has maybe like a particular vibe which you don't like does not necessarily mean that he's a difficult person or she's a difficult person. So you need to first ask yourself, like, is it a problem with me or is it a problem with that person?
Right.
So kind of ask around, observe the other people in your team. What are their relationships like with the boss? Is it like he's universally hated by everyone, or is it just like you kind of find him or her like,
Right.
like, oh my God, this person is just not the kind of manager I want to have. So you have to be a little bit objective there, and don't let your emotions take control and just like run all over the place and you walk around talking about him or anything. So observe and see if the rest of the team is also facing similar issues.
Right.
And if nobody else seems to be having a problem, then you'll be like, okay, then is it just me? Maybe it's a time to kind of, like talk to someone and see that, okay, how are you guys managing to work with? Maybe he has a particular way of getting things done and you haven't figured it out yet because you're new, So it could be the way you communicate, it could be the way you get work done, it could be the quality of the work that you're submitting, because people have their quirks, So
Agree.
if to some extent, if you're new and you still have to figure out your manager's quirks, give it some time.
Right.
And more importantly, have a conversation with your boss. Ask them exactly what they want. How do you like me to communicate with you? How often do you want me to communicate? Do you want me to WhatsApp you, call you, email you? So if he gives you a project, ask more information. Okay, when do you want me to complete this thing? Okay, what level of detail do you want it in? And what format do you want it? Ask. Don't be shy. And you finish a whole ton of work, and then he says, "This is not what I was looking for." And then you're like, "Oh, he's a difficult boss."
Right.
So
a lot
it's
of times
important.
it happens. Technically your job says that it's an 8-hour job. But a lot of times it happens that post 6 o'clock, once you're at home and with your family,
Yeah.
the boss calls up and just says that it's just a 5-minute job. That 5-minute job is actually taking away a lot of good energy from a conversation that probably you're having with your family, or probably you're not in that zone. And that 5-minute thing, what you feel that is just an email for you to send, just attach the document and send it. It's technically not 5 minutes. It's actually an hour. Okay, now you take this once, you take this twice, you take it 5 times. Now you want to keep your boss also happy by saying that you are very committed to the job, but you also don't want to burn bridges by going to the HR.
Yeah.
When is the time?
Why
when
is HR always the bad guy?
Yeah, because straightforwardly, I don't think so. The person is going to say, because if the
You know,
person
we have
had to
such
say,
a bad rep. I mean, like, seriously. Like, we have such a bad rep. We're such nice people.
I'm sure that I think even you can relate to it. I mean, like, I'm sure that you must have also got a call at some point of time
From
in your
HR?
career that, hey, can you do this? And then you start avoiding the call.
Yeah.
And
And
then-
certain people are just inherently sadistic. They know that you're going to leave at 5 and they want to call you in for a meeting exactly at 4.
Ooh, that mail will just, I think it's a scheduled mail, The person is going to leave at 5 o'clock. Let me just schedule this mail at 4:45 or just at 4:50 and just
Let me know
say
in the
that,
weekend.
that it's been like 12 hours that I've already sent you this mail and this, task is
So
not
some
being
people
done.
are just like that. So, and you can't really go to the HR complaining about that
You
because
can't.
these are things that you
Yeah, you need to work it out with your
Yeah.
boss.
figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
How?
Any suggestion for that? Yeah, how to deal with that?
I sense some truth here.
No. It's in the studio audience.
We're getting questions. We're getting questions.
It's nothing
It's not
personal.
personal.
Yeah,
No,
nothing.
so essentially, like, I think to some extent, you need to respect other people's time,
right.
right? So, okay, work time is work, and work does take a huge chunk of your time away from your family. Already you're at work for several hours of the day. And then when you go back home, you want to kind of like leave work behind and you want to kind of be at home and be present at home. So, and like you said, when the email comes or a call comes, you're irritated and you don't want to get into that zone. So one thing you can ask the person is it really urgent? Do I need to do it now? Or is it okay if I send it to you tomorrow morning? You could ask that. And if it is really urgent, you must, okay, then you do it. And if it isn't, then, the person should get the message that, you know
Yeah.
what?
So the second time probably
not a
thinks
nice thing to
twice.
do.
She
Yeah.
thinks twice before they call her like, hey, she kind of asked me last time. So Maybe I'll not call after 5.
To be honest, not many people are that sensitive. They'd be like, yeah, whatever, I'll ask you again and again and again.
That's
Ah,
also
so
a
then,
problem.
yeah. And like suddenly someone came to my mind.
See, I said the truth.
Yeah. So you
We're
like,
HR, we
you're a
see
face
things.
leader as well. I didn't know.
We're in HR, we do these things.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So then, how do you do
Psychic
like
abilities.
how do you deal with that then? Like
No,
you just
so then, see, the thing is that you communicate with the person, you tell them that this is not done. Like, is it okay for us to kind of agree on like work is work and home time
Yeah.
is home time?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and you have to try to work it out
Yeah.
as diplomatically as possible because, again, if it's your boss, then it's going to be. And it should not be an everyday thing.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's like one off, like let's say, for example, the budget is being prepared and then you need to put in
You
extra
really require
hours.
Yeah,
it.
that's-
that's okay.
that's fine.
But if
That's
it's happening
understandable.
every day, then maybe you need to
Then
sit
it's
down
a
and have a
habit.
conversation
Yeah.
with the person and say that, like,
let's not do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very uncomfortable conversation.
sure, yeah.
I'm not kidding you, but it might be a conversation that if you think it's, it's really bothering you, it's really affecting your time at home.
Right.
And you really need to set your boundaries. That's a conversation you need to have and,
Yeah. Okay, tell me another thing. Like, how much of a personal information you should be sharing with the people at work
Okay.
or your boss? Because a lot of times, I might be wrong here. When you tend to share a lot of your personal information, the next thing you feel is that is the person trying to micromanage you because he already knows your schedule, like,
Yeah. So that's not a
or
good idea.
like maybe because the person knows and now this is the time for that one to get back. So,
Yeah.
like, where to draw the line and how to kind of do it?
So my advice would be not to give too much information at work. Work is work. You
Right.
should stay at work, right?
Yeah.
So I'm one of those people who I prefer that I don't want to know everything about you, Let's just stay work friends.
Right.
Let's not let's not make it
But
personal.
then how do you make it fun? Like, you have to even ask that, what are
But
your
yeah.
plans for the weekend, right?
Yes,
Like,
you can, but say it depends on who you're having the conversation. So if you're having a conversation with a peer, right, with your who are on the same level, fine, it's fine. You can share and you can overshare and overshare and all that stuff. It's fine.
Okay, wait. I have another question.
Okay, go ahead, yeah.
Should you add your bosses to your Instagram, Facebook?
Oh, please don't.
Twitter, all of
Please
this
don't.
stuff?
No,
Or your
unless-
social media. Like,
Okay.
should your bosses find a place in the friend list of your social media profile?
What happens if your boss sends you a request and you haven't accepted it?
That's even more interesting. I really want to know that.
No, so
A simple yes or no. Just give me a yes or no. Don't be
Garima, what are you
diplomatic
doing on Instagram and Facebook? I want to ask first. So I would say, if the content that you're posting on social media is halal, then you can add your boss and boss's boss and whoever you want.
Okay.
If it's not so, then I would recommend that you kind of keep your dark side away.
Well, very rightly put.
No, because
there.
simply because people can be very judgy, and you don't want that judgment to kind of color your work interactions as well.
Right.
Oh, you were at that party last weekend, huh?
Yeah.
I saw
No
your
wonder you're
pictures,
late.
huh?
Yeah, and then the
Yeah.
conversation starts from there as to why you late at work, right?
Yeah, like
That was Thursday. Today's
Yeah,
Sunday.
and then they will behave as if they don't know. And like, you will follow us, and I saw you there. Like,
I saw
you're in the
you in
scene
my
list.
story.
Yeah, and then still
you liked it also.
Yeah. Oh my god, we are all in the same boat, right? But
Yeah.
then, okay, I got it. Okay, and since we are on the topic of social media, okay, we understood that when are we adding the bosses, but do you guys also do a little bit of social media check, background check before calling a person for an interview?
Well, not in all cases.
Okay.
For like critical roles, like important roles, critical roles, which would impact the reputation of a company. That for those people, definitely we would do a background check because you don't want to have someone who doesn't align with the company values or who's like completely like on a different track. Because to a large extent, social media tells you what kind of person, what is the vibe of that person,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So I think
don't realize that,
Yeah.
but-
Yeah.
So I would recommend, especially for certain individuals, that if you're going to apply for certain roles in companies, senior roles and like important critical roles, go back and do a check on your social media platforms and cleanse. Do a little cleanse,
Detox.
and remove the stuff which you don't want your future employer to see.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, hey, that could have been what you were like last year, and maybe you're a whole
Yeah.
other person this year.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, who am I
Yeah.
to judge, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But
Correct.
yeah.
So how do you judge a person?
When it comes to the
Yes.
job role, well, Of course, the qualifications, experience, the kind of companies that they worked for. We always prefer to do a reference check. Like we check back with previous employers about, how the person has been at the place of work. And then the overall personality of the individual is very important for me. Like,
Right.
How does, I go a lot by intuition. Yes, okay, all of this stuff is on paper, but
Right.
when I've met the person, how does he or she feel like can I work with this person, or is this person going to fit with Mr. X, because I know what the department head is like.
Right.
Okay, if I don't want to put like an overtly emotional person with like a really serious and logical manager, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So it is in my case, I look at the personality of the individual as well. And of course all the other data that we gather through all the other different testing and everything which we've done. And so I kind of balance it with both rational stuff as well as intuition.
Right.
I know that this person is definitely going to work, or it's not going to work.
And this might be a little personal also. You've been in a lot of leadership positions.
Yeah.
When it's a new team, how do you get them to align with your values and the company's values and your vision? How do you do that?
Yeah, so the first and most important thing is when you take on a new role, especially leadership role, is to kind of win your team's trust, right? So for that, I think clarity of communication is very, very important. So you bring everybody in, you have a conversation with them, you let them know. So for example, if you're new to the organization and they don't know anything about you, then you have to tell them from scratch. Now, if you've already been in the organization and you've kind of grown into that role, it becomes a little bit easier because they already know you.
Correct.
Whereas if you're brand new into the company and you've taken on a critical role, then you have to tell them who you are and what you believe in and how you like to communicate as well. What is your style in terms of communication, in terms of expectations, in terms of how work needs to be completed, the quality of work, timelines, deadlines, all of these kind of things. Give as much clarity to the team as possible. Then ask them what they expect from you as well. It's not just you just downloading all the information on them. Ask them, what kind of a leader do they want to have? Like, what expectations do they have from you that you could possibly meet? Because you need to make it work. It has to be a collaborative effort, right? It can't just be like a one-way thing. So understand them. And I would suggest that over the next couple of days that you are there in your office, get to know them better. Because every employee will have some things which he or she is really good at. And there will be some things that they're not very great at. So even when you're delegating work and stuff, you can pick the right person to do the right kind of job.
Right.
Somebody who's really good at Excel, for example, will be like, okay, fine, hey man, you make all the worksheets or whatever. Someone who's really good at, let's say, handling employees. If I make her sit and do the Excel and I send him out to handle the employees, it'll be like, what are you doing?
That's not a good boss then.
Yeah. So, try to know your team and show a genuine interest that, I really want to, know more about your work and what you do and how I can help you, and let's collaborate and let's work together, that kind of thing. It's very important to earn the trust.
Okay, tell me something. If you ever had to pick and choose between two people, where one is one of those who comes to work sharp on time, leaves on time, doesn't talk to anyone, very efficient with the work, but is like a no-nonsense person.
Okay.
You'll never see this person next to the photocopy machine or taking those coffee breaks or the other breaks, is like one of those. Yeah. And then there's this other person who is very into at every HR activity, but takes 2 hours extra to finish the same job which the previous one is taking, but is also has got a great personality and is very social and all of that. So if ever you were asked, out of these two, you have to just choose one because we don't have the
First one.
You let go.
No, I will take the first one. The one who does the work job.
Even if he's not coming to your HR
I don't
activities.
care. I want the job done. I want the job done. So you might have a fabulous personality, but if you're not getting the work done, I'm sorry, I have to let you go. I've made friends, but I have to let you go.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, why are you here? You're here to work, right? So where are my outcomes? Where are the deliverables that I'm looking for?
Right.
So
efficiency.
Yeah, efficiency is very
But that
important.
person is not even working a minute extra. Huh?
Doesn't matter. Are you delivering what I have to get? Am I getting what I want from you? I don't care whether... See, it's not about... To be honest, I don't believe in people who spend too much time in the office. I believe in efficiency. You can sit anywhere in the world and do work. A lot of work which we do for our clients is remote work. We're not sitting in the client office and doing the work.
So is it okay for you or for people to just accept the fact that if you've done the job in 3 hours and if you want to leave early from work, you can?
No. You have to finish your working hours, right? You're working hours. You're being paid for 8 hours of work as per the labor law. So you stay for the 8 hours of work.
Right.
You don't have to stay a minute extra if you've completed your job. I don't believe in sucking up to your bosses by staying for another 3 hours.
Yeah.
There are some bosses who expect that, which I don't condone.
Yeah.
the contract with the employee is for 8 hours. You stay for the 8 hours and then you leave.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, talking about 8 hours, lately this has been trending a lot where people are like talking about 4 days a week. Especially after 2019,
So nice,
where a lot of people have, and a lot of companies and organizations have continued to work from home and they've accepted that format. For a market like Oman, okay, where to be really honest, there've been so many times when I step out for lunch, I see people leaving for the day.
Yeah.
And not from my organization, just generally.
Thursdays,
Okay. Yeah. So for a market like Oman, what do you think is just the right format? Like, what do you think would work the best?
To be honest, see, being a consultant, we work on deliverables, right? So I would take if it was me, I would take a similar approach in terms of like, okay, the beginning of the week, I would probably sit down with my team and say, okay, this is what we're expected to deliver at the end of this week. I don't care how you do it, when you do it. You can sit in the middle of the night and do it. But I need this done. And that's non-negotiable. So whether you work from home or you work from the office or you work on top of a tree, I don't care, but get the work done. Okay, so that's my approach. There are some people who say that no, you have to be in the office from 9 to 5 and I need to see your face in the morning at 9 and at night, not night, 6 o'clock, have to say goodbye, whatever it is.
Yeah.
There are those kind of bosses. But a lot of organizations now are offering 3 days on, 2 days off, even in Oman, for that matter.
Wow.
So for certain roles, there are companies. So there's one I'm doing a project with right now.
Right.
They have this option for some of their employees where if the role is not something where they need to be physically available in the office, it's something which they can do remotely, why not? As long as the work is being done. So you don't abuse that facility that's being given to you. There's a certain trust that the employer has. Okay, fine, I'm letting you stay at home in 2 days and continue to be available on calls, respond to emails, complete the work that has been assigned to you during those 2 days that are still are working because I'm paying you for it, right? So why not?
Yeah.
There is scope. So it depends upon how you use that opportunity. If you do a good job by being available during those hours and by delivering what you're supposed to deliver, why should the employer not give you that option?
Yeah, fair enough.
So there are companies doing it.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Hybrid is the way forward.
It is.
Yeah,
It just
exactly.
makes life so much more convenient for
And I think
everybody.
especially for the younger generation as well, that sense of flexibility and independence is so important, because
Yes.
it's not like
Nobody wants the typical 9 to 5.
yeah. They don't want to be limited. They might just be happy. Might want to work.
Some of them work better at night.
Yeah.
It's just how they function.
Yeah.
Exactly. So for example,
especially you feel like creative,
Right.
especially if you're in the entertainment industry. Many a times, because you don't have a time for it, right?
Correct.
Like when is your mind thinking about it? That idea is always there. You don't know when is it developing, but you can't just kind of claim for it that I was working in the night for 2 hours on the concept, right? You used to have to go and just show your 8 hours there. So maybe that might just work for you there. Okay, tell me another thing. You've been in the industry for so long, right?
gosh, make me feel so old.
No, that's experience, dude. That's a lot of experience. What are the trends that you have seen changing? Like, what was it which was 5 years back but doesn't seem to continue now? Or something that new that has been introduced and is working really well for this market?
I think for one, it's that the whole concept of hybrid work. Like you said, people are more open to it. There are more, there are more open conversations about it, and the more employers are embracing it.
Right.
That's one thing which we see.
Nice.
Second thing is that I see that among the younger generation, there is a lot more accountability. Okay, and from a very young age, they're quite serious about what they want, and they're very driven.
Nice.
And they're very no nonsense. They don't put up with crap like the way we did. Like, if you have, So that's something which I really respect the younger generation for. Like, they will call it as it is. They will call it as they see it. And if they have to walk out, they will walk out. They will not put up with
Anything that's not going their way.
So that, they will not compromise on their careers. They will not compromise on their learning journeys. They will do what it takes to get ahead. So,
And that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's important.
But then it
for
has its own
employers to
pros
know.
and cons. Then you keep switching because you're never satisfied. Like you keep switching like very,
No,
very...
so how do you retain these people? You retain
Yeah.
them by giving them that motivation that they're looking for, like giving them what they're looking. They're looking for growth and learning and challenge.
Nice.
So keep them
Nice.
engaged and give them. So like I don't want to say it. Well, I kind of want to say it this way. Keep them on a loose leash. Don't hold it too tight. Don't pull back. Don't keep them on a tight leash.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Let it
Okay,
flow.
there might be times when you have to pull it back.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
a certain amount of flexibility and independence needs to be given because that's how they thrive.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't
So
want to
they're
be the one
technically
who's
keeping the companies also on their toes just to make sure that even they are working and investing enough back
Yes.
into the employees.
Yeah, it's
like
it's not a one-way thing anymore.
Right.
I mean, companies have to make just as much effort
yeah.
as the employee has to retain their employee and make sure that the employee stays engaged and committed and stays with the company for a long period of time.
Right.
You have to put in the work as well, because
Right.
otherwise somebody else is going to take that person and go away.
So the youth, they definitely know what they want now. So
Yeah.
what happens, or how do you realize that you are not in the right workplace? What are a few red flags?
Yeah. So there are. So I'm also a coach. So I'm an ICF certified coach. So I have a lot of 4-in-1.
I don't even have that those many siblings now. I'm like, done.
I've covered your entire family. So
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, please. Yeah,
so
that's my mom now.
agony aunt.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I have a lot of coaching clients who are going through career transitions, right? So they're moving from one career to another, or
Right.
from one job to another, same industry or different industry. So, like you said, how do you know that it's time to move on? Or how do you know that it's not the right fit for you? So, as human beings, like our genes, it predisposes us to certain kinds of behaviors, and
Right.
these behaviors make us more suited to certain kinds of work than others. So the first thing you kind of need to ask yourself is, what kind of job is effortless for me? Like when I'm in it, I don't feel that it's work. I'm in the flow. I enjoy doing it. I can sit here, like look at us sitting here and talking for like hours. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
like effortful. Like it's like
Yeah.
it's relaxed and we're
You're looking
enjoying
forward.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
You were like, I want to do this, not
Yes.
be forced by
Yes.
someone to do this.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when, like for example, if I'm working on a project for a particular client which is really interesting, I don't mind getting up at 8 every morning and
You'd be excited
excited.
to.
I want to be there, right?
Yeah.
And the work feels effortless. It's and you enjoy it, and you will see that for you to do that work, it takes only a certain amount of effort. But the same work, if it's being done by somebody else, it takes a lot more effort. So you are actually getting more return out of your effort than the other person. So that means you're really good at it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's another thing. And then you have to ask yourself, like, do I really enjoy what I'm doing here?
Yeah.
Like, does it make me happy?
Yeah.
That's also important, right? I mean, yes,
Correct.
I'm not saying money is not important. Money is very important. But at the end of the day, you want to go home happy as well. Right?
Yeah.
What are you doing it all for?
In fact, very recently, I was having a conversation with Darshil, my husband, where I just went back home and I told him that, what a fantastic, productive day it was. I didn't realize when did it strike like 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
But there were also days back in the day where I used to be like, I literally used to just keep looking at the watch and I used to be like, 1 hour left. When is it going to be 5? When can I leave
Yeah.
work?
Yeah.
So the difference technically is that when you don't realize where the time is going,
Right.
in comparison to when you're just constantly just kind of looking at the watch,
clock,
when can
yeah.
I leave? I think that itself says a lot.
Exactly. So
Right.
if you're truly engaged in your job and what
Yeah.
you're doing, then
Yeah.
you're not looking for an excuse to leave. I'm not saying
Yeah.
don't leave the job, stay on till late night. No, but you enjoy it. But you're present. You're in the moment. You
True.
find enchantment in what you do, and every new project is an adventure because there's something new you're going
There's
to learn,
excitement
and
there that
you're
you gotta-
going to be scared. You're going to be
Yeah.
freaked out a little bit, but there's a challenge. There's something new. There's growth. You're going to be
Yeah.
uncomfortable, but you know that you're going to cross that hurdle, and when you get to the other side, you're like, wow,
Yeah,
I
you
did
just
that.
pat yourself and
You
then
know,
you're
and
like,
you're like, and
you
you're
did
so
it.
proud of yourself. You pat yourself on the back, and you're like,
Yeah.
yes, and then I can do more.
Yeah.
Would you agree to the saying which says that love your job, not the company? This could be
Yeah.
slightly controversial.
No. So hey, I would say love yourself first.
Whoa.
Nicely put. Nicely put.
Edit. Cut this. Yeah.
So jobs
And
can
use
come,
it.
jobs will come and go, and companies will come and go. But
Yeah.
you focus on you, right? You focus on what makes you happy, what you're good at, what you
Right.
want to kind of invest in yourself in terms of your learning, in terms of your growth. You have your own, like how companies have their own vision, mission, and values.
Right.
You need to
Have it
have something
yourself.
for yourself as well.
True.
Like
Right.
what is
Very
what
true.
do I want to see myself doing? 5 years
Yeah.
from now, 10 years from now. What are my values? What are things which are really important for me?
Right.
It's honesty or fun or flexibility or independence or truth or whatever it is.
I
These
have
things are very important.
I have a question. So now this would be slightly shifting to the counseling side of what you
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
Now some people have really big visions and they might be pretty decent at what they do too, but sometimes that job, that career is not practical.
Yeah.
They're passionate, yes,
Yeah.
but maybe they're not
It's
in
not
a
gonna pay
place.
the bills.
Passion is not enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do you guide these people?
So it depends upon like how practical. So thing is that there are some people who are very creative. They're visionaries, right?
Correct.
They see everything in the big picture.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't drill down to the details. They're not
Yeah.
great at implementation. And then they have the reverse as well. There are people who are like so into the details, they don't have like the big picture vision. You know, so the best thing to do is you kind of have to bring them together.
Right.
You know, if you're able to match a big vision person with like a super implementer. So we have this test which we do in companies called the Belbin team roles.
Okay.
It's basically, you know, I don't know if you guys have heard about it.
No,
So here-
I'm hearing it for the first time and I want to know all about it.
So in Belbin team roles, what we do is we do like an assessment for the entire team. So
Okay.
depending upon your personality trait, you take on a certain role in the team. So you could be a plant. A plant is a person who plants an idea. You know. Then you have somebody who's like a team player who's like all about collaborating and making sure that everybody in the team works. Then you have like an executor who's like, let's get it done, let's get it done. So, you know, so different people, based on their personality, they take on different roles in the team.
Right.
Right? So it's important to find the right fit. So, like I said, for this particular person who's great at envisioning wonderful things but can't get the stuff done, you have to pair him or her with the right people around who can execute his vision for
Right.
him.
Right.
You know, so either he learns to execute it by himself, as in you tell him, okay, you help the person make a strategy, you help him to break it down. So that's what we do in coaching, for example. So person starts off with saying that, okay, I want to do this. This is my goal, you know. So then we say, okay, fine, what is your strategy? How are you going to achieve this goal?
Right.
So then we make a strategy, or you make a plan. Now, let's break down the plan. What are the timelines? What are the milestones that you're going to achieve? Okay, these are the milestones. Now, by when are you going to achieve the first milestone? When are they achieving this? So you break it down, you drill it down into small pieces. Like it's how they say, right? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So that's what you get. You get him to take it one bite at a time.
Right.
Wow.
You make him see the little details.
Yeah.
That's it.
We learned something very interesting and very
I
new.
learned a lot of things, man. Yeah.
How to eat an elephant?
Absolutely. Okay, now we've spoken a lot about the CVs. We've spoken about while you're there in the company. Let's now move towards. I'm sure that you must have had a lot of times when you must have even called someone to your office or send out that mail which says that thank you very much. Or
Never an email. Always in person.
Oh,
Always in person. You
Okay,
never
you've
let
always
go of a
done it.
person by mail.
Yeah, because these days you hear so much where people were just fired
That
online.
is just plain
They-
disrespectful.
Yeah, just you know, sending that termination letter to so many people, or just online
Okay,
where
if it
people
is
were
during
fired.
COVID, I can understand.
No,
but
these are like recent news pieces that you've
That's
heard.
just-
Yeah, like that's
that is
happening,
just
and it's still
bad
You were
HR
laid off
practice.
yesterday.
yeah. I mean, like, so, okay. So, what is really the right way of doing it? How many times have you done it? And has there ever
How does
been?
it make you feel?
Oh, it makes okay. I
have
will
another
never
question, I
forget
have
my
another
first.
question. No, I have another one. Has there ever been a case that'll stay with you like forever?
Oh my god.
Any exit interview or anything of that sort?
Oh,
Take us
so
through that.
so many. So the first one is always very very hard. I remember I was more nervous than the
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
than the
man.
other person when I did my first termination. It was very very hard for me because look at me. I am not like. You know, I'm a happy, bubbly person. Okay, that's generally my personality.
You're not the one who comes to bad news that listen.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I'm in HR. So, you know, that comes with a bad rep as well, you know. So to a large extent, so when anybody gets a call, says, please come to HR. First emotion, they're like, oh my God, what did I do wrong?
Yeah,
You know,
because
that's,
there's never a happy news coming from
Yeah.
them. They'll never give
I
you
have
a
to admit
voucher or
that's
they'll never
true.
say that you got 2 weeks extra
You
off.
wish.
You will never hear all of that. It's always
Like,
like,
I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
It's like when you get called to the principal's office. It's the same thing.
yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah. So,
Wow.
Yeah. So why do you think I'm out of the job now? I'm doing my own consulting now.
That line itself is very stressful.
Yeah, it is.
The HR has called you. Now go on.
Yeah,
Now.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so when it comes to like termination, like I would suggest the first thing is, as an HR, what I've followed personally is that it's going to be a very difficult conversation. Let's not
Right.
go into thinking it's going to be unicorn and rainbows, and you know, don't try to diminish the emotion in the room. Okay, there will definitely be emotion. There might be anger. There might be shock. There might be some people might be like very resigned about it. Like, yeah, I knew it was coming, or like, yeah, I was expecting it. You know, you see. You know, you see all kinds of reactions.
Yeah, how do you answer questions like when you're handing over a termination letter and the person on the other side is like, but I just bought a house.
Yeah.
What do I
Oh
do with my like the school fees? What do I do with the medical expenses? Like,
Yeah.
oh my god, like now how do you just answer
Like,
to
it
all
gets
those
personal.
questions?
Yeah, it gets personal. So you have to just be there for that person. Let the person give them time to process the information. Don't like try to just like say the stuff and just like push them out of the room, like, go
Like,
away
okay,
now, my
bye.
job is done. Yeah, take the paper and run.
Yeah.
No, so I would suggest giving as much compassion as possible to the person and allow them to have that emotion. If they're feeling angry and they want to rant and rave against you or the company, whatever it is, let them get it out. Don't defend and say, but actually, you were like this. No, don't do that. I mean, let's give them some time to just process the bad news. It is bad news. Even if, even when people are expecting it, I've fired people on New Year's Day.
Oh.
Yeah. So, because the line manager said, you have to do it now. Because that was like, you should have done it yesterday, but you didn't do it yesterday, do it today. Because yesterday was a Friday and something, the weekend, or it was a Saturday,
Oh
so I
my
couldn't
God,
do it.
that's
So,
not how you want to start your new year.
yeah, so I have fired people, one person, I will never forget his face. I have fired a person on the 1st of Jan, and yeah, I felt terrible because I was like, how is this year going to be? I mean, for me and for the person, obviously. But yeah, so sometimes you have to do these kind of things, and it's really, really hard. So I think the most important emotion that you need to have in this situation is compassion for yourself and also for the other person, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a difficult conversation for both parties. I mean,
Right.
I don't know. I mean, like there might be some HR folks who enjoy terminating people, but personally,
Sadistic people.
Yeah.
personally, I've always found it very traumatic. My worst times of the year is
Right.
when I have to terminate people and when there are performance reviews going on. I hate giving feedback.
We never touched that topic, performance reviews.
Exactly.
Wow. What if
recognition?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
so important
Yeah,
for the
recognition.
person.
Appraisals.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, let's talk about
Any
that.
feedback, like any feedback.
Yeah.
Am I good? Am I bad?
Yeah.
What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And
How should you even rate yourself while you're filling that form, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. We've seen everybody will rate themselves at 5, okay? 5 out of 5.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
And then you'll be like, come, beta, sit down.
Yeah.
Let me tell you,
Show you the
explain a few things
reality
to you.
here. Yeah.
You're actually not a 5, you're actually a 2 in this area.
and I'm just being generous. All right. So how do performance evaluations work, and how often should a company do this?
Well, ideally, I would recommend that a company does performance evaluations at least twice a year.
Right.
But as per Oman labor law, you need to do it at least once a year.
Okay.
So typically what happens is that at the beginning of the financial year, the company will have its company goals, right? So the company goals needs to be broken down into department goals, and then that gets broken down into individual goals. Now these individual goals are what you call your KPIs or key performance indicators. So that goes into each employee's file. So you need to be told at the start of the year by your line manager, okay, that these are your KPIs for the year ahead. And then this is what we're going to assess you on at the end of the year or after 6 months. And then based on the assessment score that you get, so people normally give a rating of 1 to 5 or whatever it is. And depending upon the rating that you get, that's what will determine what is your increment going to be, what is your bonus going to be, so on and so forth. So that's typically how it should work. So you must have a clear idea of what you are working towards, how is that going to help your company, how are you going to be assessed, what is the assessment process like. So all these things need to be made clear to you at the beginning of the year. So that's also another role which HR has to do.
What does the
Making sure-
Oman law say? What is the percent like? How much appraisal should you get towards the end of the year?
So as per Oman labor law, typically minimum is 3% of the basic salary that they recommend.
Okay.
Of course, employers normally give higher than that.
Right.
Typically.
Right.
Because
Good to
3%
know.
basically is usually
Yeah.
a small amount.
Yeah.
But a performance review needs to be done. Needs to be documented. Right. This is also a good time for managers to have a conversation with non-performing staff.
Right.
And letting them know that their performance is not up to speed. And then you put them on a performance improvement plan for 3 months or 6 months, wherein you scrutinize their performance. You give them specific things, tasks, challenges, projects to do.
Right.
And you assess how their performance is. And if you have to let go of the employee at a later point of time, you can do so if you followed the due process.
Right.
And it's documented properly.
What really is highlighted? Like, what catches your attention? 2 very good projects that you got on board, like 2 big peaks or consistency. So basically, what I'm trying to compare here is there is one person who hasn't been that consistent, but has got 2 big jumps, like 2 very good projects done over the year. And then there is this other person who's been absolutely consistent and brilliant with the job, but not any high peaks.
Nothing
So
exceptional.
Yeah. So
standards.
which is the one that would get like a
Higher rating?
Yeah.
It depends upon what was more important for the company. So now, for example, these 2 projects.
But don't you think they are kind of interrelated? If this person wouldn't have been consistent, of course your performance would have.
Yes, so
like
again,
the
so
company's
it depends
performance would have
upon-
gone down,
It depends
right?
upon the role of the person, right? So if let's say, for example, a person has been working very consistently on a particular role,
Okay.
but he has been working on a project which is not of much value or of much worth, whereas the other person has been working, let's say, on two projects which are of huge challenge and huge importance for the company,
Right.
then the company might say, okay, I'm going to give this guy, okay, he might give him a rating of 3 because you've done well, you've been consistent throughout, very good. I might give the other guy a rating of 4 because you did a more difficult job and it was, it was a tougher
It's the
job.
end result.
So it depends upon what do you value as
Yeah.
a company, right?
Yeah.
What does the company want? That's why I said the company goals are important.
Right.
So
Yeah.
when you perform, you have to make sure that what you're doing should align with what the company wants you to do. You know, say that, but I did all these things, but company can come back and say, but I don't want these things. I want those things, and you didn't do those things.
Yeah. And how should you rate yourself in that performance review? Because even that happens, right? You have to rate yourself out of
Self-assessment.
5. Yeah,
So
self-assessment.
typically it starts with a self-assessment. So majority of the people over-assess themselves.
Oh.
They always give themselves like high scores.
Right.
They give themselves like 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5, and then line manager or HR will sit them down and say, "Beta, let's have a conversation. You know, you're not really a 5. You're a 2. Come on."
Show you the
Being
mirror right
generous.
there.
Yeah.
But then obviously that sound in your head is there, no? That if you only don't value yourself, who else is going to be like, now you have, now at least I have the chance, let me just give myself 6 out of 5.
But then again, see, the thing is that with any assessment, you have to provide evidence.
Yeah.
That's how it works,
Yeah.
right? So if
Right.
you say that
Proof.
I'm a 5 out of 5 and I got 100% achievement of target for my sales, for
Yeah.
example, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see your sales target numbers.
Yeah.
Have you really achieved 100%?
True that.
So it has to be, so always better to have KPIs that are measurable, right?
Right.
So that you can use a numeric
It's very
value.
difficult to have it in the entertainment industry, trust me.
I'm sure it is.
Like
yeah.
for the creative people, how do you even justify that it's a great idea or not executed well by the marketing or the other teams or whatever? I mean, like,
Like, for example,
you don't have
sometimes-
numbers.
To give an example, for example, say an employee has met the targets, whatever is being defined by the company, measurable targets.
Yeah.
But the company does not follow the procedures and does not recognize. What does the employee do? Move immediately, stay on. How does he or she shine in that kind of an environment?
So I would suggest that the person first has a conversation with the line manager and
Right.
with the HR. Like, you know, I've done all these things, I've ticked all the boxes, I've met all the requirements. You know, why haven't I been given what I was promised? For example, if he's been promised a promotion or an increment, you know. So now companies could give them like a very valid reason as to why it was not done. It could be that maybe they didn't have a budget or maybe, you know, things didn't work out the way they expected. So wait for an explanation. Raise your concern, okay, to the higher ups and let them know that you're not happy with what has been done to you. Don't sit quietly and say, oh, you know, mope about it. No, speak up. Let them know that, you know what, I was expecting this, but I didn't get it. So could you give me an explanation as to why then this hasn't happened? So wait for an explanation from your line manager or from HR as to, you know, why it hasn't happened. And if you feel that that's an explanation which you can accept, you know, like, yeah, I know the market was bad and yeah, you know, cash flow issues and, you know, we had problems or whatever it is, or one of the major investors pulled out. You know what's happening in your company, right?
Yeah.
If it makes sense to you,
Yeah.
okay, then you stay on. Now, if you feel that the company's had a bumper year and they're trying to bullshit you, then you're like,
He's like, hey,
I
what's
know
going
what
on?
you
I see. Like, I
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
I know what's going on. So basically, speak up, ask.
yeah, ask for an
Make your presence
explanation.
felt.
Yeah, ask for an explanation. Like, why is this happening? Like, is there a
Right.
reason as to why you haven't given me this promotion or increment that I was expecting, you know?
Right.
Or it could just be that you expected it, but it was not, you know, like, sorry, we don't want to give it to you.
Okay, I have a very, very interesting question which has come from our production team who's
Okay.
watching us behind the camera right now. And I think it's a very valid question that needs to be asked.
Okay.
You have spoken about who hires the employees. So basically, HR comes into the picture where
Yeah.
you're keeping the bosses happy, you're keeping the employees happy. But who hires this person? Who hires this HR? And what are the qualifications or what are the things that you should be looking for when you are hiring someone for that position?
So, well, typically the HR is usually hired by the CEO. If it's a large corporate, which has, let's say, branches in other countries and so on, they might have like a functional head of HR, like a CHRO, who might hire for his or her own team.
Okay.
So usually it will be a dual process where there will be an operational head, which is locally in Oman, for example. And let's say, for example, you have an HR head who might be sitting in another country. So then you kind of have like dual
Yeah.
interviews.
Yeah.
Otherwise, typically for smaller companies, what happens is the owner of the company or the CEO is the one who hires the HR.
Right.
So when it comes to what kind of qualifications and so on they need to have, I would say they would need to have a degree in, either an MBA in HR or a CIPD or one of these certifications in HR. That's a given. Now, in addition to that, they need to have relevant work experience in that particular role, in an HR role, either in a similar industry or related industry. So they have an idea of how to manage these things. And a reference check is very important to understand how has this person performed in the previous companies and so on. And then you meet the person and you decide, well, is this a person who's going to fit the culture of my company? Or because the HR's role is a very critical role because they set the tone of the company to a large extent. You know, the culture in the company, the vibe is set by the HR team.
Right.
You know? So companies who understand that and who take the right people to fill those shoes, they make the right decision.
This is the foundation.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, because you touch so many lives.
Yeah.
You impact them in so many ways.
Yeah.
You can really mess up people's lives or you can really, enhance their work experience. So a lot of power is there in an HR department. So if you pick the right team, you have the right kind of culture and vibe in the organization.
Somebody watching you wants to get into this and take up this as a career. Is it well paid?
Yeah, well, HR, well, compared.
I really want to know that now.
So compared to somebody who's in marketing or finance, HR is paid lower.
Okay.
So simply because HR is seen more as a support function. It's not seen as in corporates, I'm saying. It's typically seen as a support function, not as a revenue earning function.
Right.
They will not earn as much as somebody who's in marketing, somebody who's in finance, somebody who's in operations. They will always earn more than somebody who's in HR.
Yeah, but that's such an important element for any organization, and to do away with that particular role or to just kind of, settle for anyone. I mean that's not fair for so many people then in the entire company for that matter.
Yeah, after this conversation, I hope that changes.
Yeah, that's a very, very important role, and you really need to invest in that particular role as well.
Yeah, you need to pick the right people to be there in your HR team because they set things in place.
Yeah.
Any final words before we go?
Yeah, like since we are talking about that, you come as the common person in the whole cycle of an employee, right from the job interview to the exit interview to the time when the person is spending that time in the company. So whosoever is watching you at the moment, no matter which part of their life right now they are in, if you had to give them one message, what message would that be?
Well, I would say that first and foremost, work is only one aspect of your personality, of who you are. Don't let your work define your identity. You are more than just an HR manager or a marketing manager or a doctor or whatever it is. You're so much more than that. So it's just one aspect of who you are. Don't let it, take over your life. There is more to it. So keep time aside for work. Keep time aside for fun. Work hard. Have fun even more. Party harder. That's my message.
Right. And if someone wants to reach you because you have all the contacts, you have like the most jugadu person, if I had to say.
Oh my God.
If someone's looking for a job, how do they contact you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Right.
Easy access. Yeah.
And
We'll put all the details in the caption.
Absolutely.
And Ms. Farzeen, it's been an absolute pleasure. I think this has been a very interesting conversation. This is going to help so many people.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
And after this, I'm not too sure if we'll be updating our CV or going to the HR for a raise. So by the time we decide on to that, I think you guys can take good care of yourself. And
thank you so much once again. And we'll be back with a lot more interesting conversations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.